Hello, welcome to Faith Call. I'm James, your host, sharing Bible stories and prayers to inspire. Join me and follow. Why do tensions between Jews and Arabs persist through the ages? Why do conflicts arise even among Muslim nations? Today, I, James, invite you to explore a profound biblical narrative that holds the key to understanding these questions. This story, rooted in the lives of two brothers, Isaac and Ishmael, sons of Abraham, mirrors the struggles we witness today between Israel and parts of the Muslim world. Their story, found in the book of Genesis, is not just a historical account, but a prophetic lens through which we can view both the origins of this divide and the hope for its resolution. Let's dive into this journey of faith, conflict, and the promise of reconciliation, and consider what it means for us today. In the ancient pages of the Bible, we are introduced to a man named Abraham, a figure handpicked by God to bear the weight of an extraordinary destiny. He was called to be the patriarch of countless nations, a cornerstone in a divine plan that would ripple through the ages. God's promise to Abraham was nothing short of awe-inspiring. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you. Genesis 12:2-3. This covenant was a radiant beacon of hope, a divine assurance that Abraham's lineage would not only prosper, but become a conduit for universal blessing. Yet, woven into this glorious promise was a challenge that would test the faith, patience, and hearts of Abraham and his wife, Sarai. In the cultural tapestry of their time, a woman's worth was often measured by her ability to bear children, to weave a legacy through the threads of motherhood. For Sarai, however, this fundamental expectation was a source of profound sorrow. She was barren, unable to conceive, and this reality cast a long shadow over her life. Each passing year deepened the wound, as the absence of a child became a silent burden, a source of quiet shame in a society that equated fertility with divine favor. The promise of nations seemed a cruel mirage, shimmering just beyond her reach. In a moment of divine intervention, God bestowed upon Sarai a new name, Sarah, meaning princess. It was a title meant to signify her exalted role in the unfolding divine narrative, a name that should have crowned her with dignity. Yet to Sarah, it must have felt like a bitter irony. How could she embody the grandeur of a princess, the mother of nations, when her womb remained empty, her arms devoid of an heir? As the years stretched into decades, Abraham and Sarah grew old, well into their 80s, their bodies bearing the marks of time's relentless passage. The promise of a child, once a vibrant hope, began to fade into the realm of the impossible. Doubt, like a slow poison, seeped into their hearts, and despair tightened its grip. In this crucible of longing and frustration, Sarah made a decision that reflected both the customs of her era and the depths of her desperation. She turned to a practice that, while foreign to modern sensibilities, was not uncommon in the ancient Near East. "The Lord has kept me from having children," she said to Abraham. "Go, sleep with my servant Hagar. Perhaps I can build a family through her." Genesis 16:2. Hagar, an Egyptian servant bound to Sarah, became the vessel through which Sarah hoped to grasp the elusive promise. Abraham, perhaps with a heavy heart, agreed to this unconventional path, and Hagar soon conceived a child. For a fleeting moment, it seemed that the divine promise might find fulfillment through human ingenuity. Hagar's pregnancy was a spark of hope, a tangible sign that Abraham's lineage might yet endure. Yet this human solution, born of impatience and a desire to control the uncontrollable, unraveled into a web of unforeseen consequences. The dynamics within Abraham's household shifted dramatically. Sarah, who had orchestrated this plan to secure her family's future, found herself diminished in its aftermath. Hagar, now carrying Abraham's child, became a living reminder of Sarah's perceived failure. The servant's newfound status as the mother of Abraham's heir cast a shadow over Sarah, igniting feelings of inadequacy and jealousy. What had been intended as a solution became a source of deep relational strife. Sarah's pain morphed into resentment, and she began to treat Hagar with harshness, her actions fueled by the raw emotions of a woman grappling with her own sense of worthlessness. Hagar, pregnant and humiliated, found herself caught in a storm of Sarah's anguish. The weight of her mistress's scorn became unbearable, and in a desperate bid for freedom, Hagar fled into the wilderness. The desert, vast and unforgiving, stretched across what is now recognized as the Middle East, approximately 100 miles from Abraham's camp. Alone, with no resources to sustain her and no hope to guide her, Hagar faced a future as bleak as the barren landscape around her. Yet, in this moment of utter desolation, God's presence broke through the darkness. By a spring in the wilderness, an angel of the Lord appeared to Hagar, offering not just solace but a divine promise that echoed the covenant given to Abraham. "Go back to your mistress and submit to her," the angel instructed. "I will increase your descendants so much that they will be too numerous to count." Genesis 16:9-10. This encounter was a testament to God's compassion, a reminder that He sees and hears the cries of the afflicted, even those on the margins of society. The angel bestowed upon Hagar's unborn son a name, Ishmael, meaning God hears, a powerful affirmation of divine attention to her suffering. But the message carried an additional layer, a prophecy about Ishmael's future. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him, and he will live in hostility toward all his brothers. Genesis 16:12. This vivid imagery, rooted in the ancient symbol of a wild donkey, fierce, untamed, and fiercely independent, painted a portrait of a people destined for resilience and strength, yet marked by conflict and struggle. Ishmael's descendants, as foretold, would embody a spirit of defiance and survival, living in tension with their neighbors. This prophecy, etched in the sacred texts thousands of years ago, resonates with striking clarity in the complexities of modern geopolitics. The tensions between Israel and Arab nations, the divisions within the Muslim world, such as the Sunni-Shia conflicts in places like Syria and Yemen, seem to echo the ancient words spoken to Hagar. The story of Abraham, Sarah, and Hagar is not merely a historical account, but a narrative that continues to unfold. Its themes of faith, desperation, and divine intervention reverberating through the centuries. This tale is a profound exploration of human frailty and divine fidelity. Abraham and Sarah, chosen for greatness, grappled with the same doubts and fears that plague us all. Their story reminds us that faith is not a straight path, but a journey fraught with detours, mistakes, and moments of divine encounter. Hagar too emerges as a figure of resilience, her wilderness experience a testament to God's care for the overlooked and oppressed. Together, their stories weave a tapestry of hope, conflict, and redemption, inviting us to reflect on the ways in which divine promises intersect with human choices, shaping destinies that echo across time. The biblical narrative of Abraham, Hagar, and Sarah weaves a profound story that transcends time, resonating with themes of faith, human struggle, and divine intervention. At its heart lies the birth of Ishmael, the son born to Hagar, and the later arrival of Isaac, the miraculous child of Sarah. These events, steeped in divine promises and human choices, set the stage for a legacy that continues to echo through history, shaping the destinies of nations and offering timeless lessons for those who ponder its meaning. Hagar, the Egyptian servant who fled Sarah's harsh treatment, returned to Abraham's camp as instructed by the angel of the Lord. In time, she gave birth to Ishmael, a child whose name, meaning God hears, served as a living reminder of God's compassion in her moment of despair. For 13 years, Ishmael stood as Abraham's sole heir, the embodiment of a divine promise that had seemed unattainable. To Abraham, now in his late 80s, Ishmael was the apple of his eye, a tangible sign that God's covenant to make him the father of a great nation was unfolding. Every milestone in Ishmael's young life, his first steps, his laughter, his growth, must have filled Abraham with hope, a glimpse of the future God had pledged. Yet the story was far from complete, and the divine plan held surprises that would challenge the family's faith and alter their trajectory forever. The Bible introduces an ancient Jewish principle, Ma'aseh Avot Siman Labanim, which translates to, the deeds of the fathers are a sign for their children. This concept suggests that the lives of biblical patriarchs like Abraham, Ishmael, and later Isaac are not merely historical accounts, but prophetic blueprints, foreshadowing the futures of their descendants. In Christian tradition, this idea finds a parallel in typology, a method employed by the Apostle Paul to interpret Old Testament stories as shadows of future realities. Scholars and theologians have long applied these principles to draw parallels between the ancient narratives and modern geopolitical tensions, particularly the enduring conflicts between Israel and the Arab and Muslim nations. The connections are striking, revealing a story that is as relevant today as it was millennia ago. Years after Ishmael's birth, God fulfilled his promise to Sarah in a way that defied human understanding. Sarah, now well into her 90s, miraculously conceived and gave birth to Isaac, a child whose very existence was a testament to divine power. Isaac became the patriarch of the Jewish people, the heir through whom God's covenant with Abraham would continue. In Muslim tradition, Ishmael is revered as the ancestor of the Arab and Muslim peoples, his legacy intertwined with the history of nations across the Middle East. The tension between these two brothers, Ishmael and Isaac, began in their lifetimes, rooted in the complex dynamics of their mother's relationship and the divine promises that shaped their destinies. Sarah, representing Israel, and Hagar, symbolizing the Arab and Muslim world, became figures in a narrative of rivalry and division that persists in modern conflicts, from the Israeli-Palestinian struggle to the sectarian divides within the Muslim world, such as the Sunni-Shia tensions seen in regions like Syria and Yemen. The roots of this ancient conflict trace back to God's promise to Abraham, a pledge that seemed impossible until it unfolded in ways that no one could have anticipated. Sarah's desperation to secure an heir had led her to propose that Abraham conceive a child with Hagar, a decision born of cultural norms but fraught with emotional consequences. When Hagar became pregnant, the balance of their household shifted, and Sarah's pain turned to resentment, driving Hagar into the wilderness. There, in the desolate expanses of what is now the Negev region of southern Israel, approximately 100 miles from Abraham's camp, Hagar faced a future devoid of hope. The scorching desert sun offered no mercy, and the barren landscape mirrored her sense of abandonment. Yet, in her darkest hour, God intervened with a message of compassion and destiny. by a spring in the wilderness, an angel of the Lord appeared to Hagar, offering not just comfort, but a divine promise that rivaled the covenant given to Abraham. "Return to your mistress and submit to her," the angel instructed, "for I will increase your descendants so greatly that they will be too numerous to count." Genesis 16:9-10. This was a lifeline extended to a woman who felt forsaken, a testament to God's ability to see and hear the cries of the marginalized. The angel named her unborn son Ishmael, a name that carried the weight of divine empathy. God hears. But the message did not end there. The angel delivered a prophecy about Ishmael's future. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone and everyone's hand against him, and he will live in hostility toward all his brothers. Genesis 16:12. This vivid imagery, evoking the untamed spirit of a wild donkey, painted a picture of a people destined for resilience and independence, yet marked by conflict and struggle, a prophecy that continues to resonate in the complexities of modern geopolitics. What does this ancient narrative mean for us today? For those who reflect on faith, it serves as a powerful reminder that God's plans often unfold in ways that defy human expectations. Sarah's attempt to take matters into her own hands led to pain and division, yet God's compassion extended to both Hagar and Ishmael, demonstrating that His love transcends human mistakes. In our own lives, we may face moments when promises, whether divine or personal, seem delayed or unattainable. Like Sarah, we might be tempted to force solutions, to grasp control when faith feels too fragile. Yet this story invites us to trust in God's timing, to hold fast to hope even when the path ahead seems impossible. It challenges us to consider: have you ever faced a moment where you had to wait for a promise to be fulfilled? How did your faith sustain you through the uncertainty? The story of Hagar, Ishmael, and Isaac is a call to perseverance, a reminder that God's compassion reaches into the wilderness of our lives, offering hope and purpose even in our darkest moments. This narrative also speaks to the enduring consequences of human choices. Sarah's decision to involve Hagar set in motion a chain of events that shaped the destinies of nations. Hagar's encounter with God in the wilderness transformed her from a fleeing servant into the matriarch of a great people. Isaac's miraculous birth redefined the covenant, yet it deepened the divide between two brothers whose legacies continue to intersect in complex and often painful ways. Their story is not just a relic of the past, but a living narrative, inviting us to reflect on the interplay of faith, conflict, and divine grace in our world today. But the angel's message carried a deeper prophecy, one that would mark Ishmael's descendants for generations. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone and everyone's hand against him, and he will live in hostility toward all his brothers. Genesis 16:12. Pause and let that sink in. This vivid imagery, written thousands of years ago, feels strikingly relevant to today's headlines. The term wild donkey isn't an insult in the ancient context. In the rugged landscapes of the Middle East, a wild donkey symbolized untamed freedom, a fierce and independent spirit that bows to no one. It described a people destined to endure against all odds, resilient and proud, yet caught in a cycle of conflict, not only with others, but among themselves. This prophecy, as we'll see, resonates in the tensions between Israel and Arab nations, as well as in internal struggles within the Muslim world, such as the Sunni-Shia divide seen in modern conflicts like those in Syria and Yemen. Hagar returned to Abraham's camp, her heart strengthened by God's promise. She gave birth to Ishmael, And for Abraham, now in his late 80s, this child was a miracle. After years of waiting for God's promise of a great nation, Abraham held Ishmael in his arms, his firstborn, the center of his world, the heir to his dreams. For 13 long years, Ishmael was the embodiment of hope, the proof that God's word was true. Imagine Abraham's joy, a father in his old age cradling the future of a mighty nation. In Ishmael, he saw strength, resilience, and the promise of countless descendants. Today, many see these traits reflected in the pride and endurance of Arab nations, whose rich history and global influence trace back to this very child. Yet, the prophecy about Ishmael had a dual edge. While it promised greatness, it also foretold conflict. His hand will be against everyone and everyone's hand against him. This prediction plays out on two fronts today. Externally, it points to the ongoing tensions between Israel and parts of the Muslim world. Internally, it reflects the deep divisions within Islam itself, such as the Sunni-Shia conflicts that have fueled wars in places like Syria, where over 500,000 lives have been lost since 2011, or Yemen, where millions face humanitarian crises. These struggles echo the biblical warning of hostility toward all his brothers, a reminder that division can fracture even the closest of kin. For those of us reflecting on this story, it's a call to examine our own lives. Conflict, whether between nations or within our families, often stems from misunderstanding or competing claims to what we believe is ours. Like Hagar, we may face moments of exile, times when we feel cast out, alone, or unheard. Yet God's encounter with Hagar shows us that He sees our pain and hears our cries. His promise to her was not just for her time, but for all time, a reminder that His care extends to every heart. Have you ever felt like Hagar, alone in your own wilderness? How did God's presence meet you there? I, James, would love to hear your stories in the comments below. Your experiences of faith can inspire others. The story takes a dramatic turn with the birth of Isaac, the child of promise. Years passed, and Sarah, now 90, had given up hope of bearing a child. She had resigned herself to her legacy continuing through Ishmael, believing God's promise had passed her by. Abraham, nearing 100, must have felt the weight of time as well. But one day, as the desert sun rose over their tent in Hebron, 3 mysterious visitors arrived. Abraham, ever the gracious host, welcomed them with a meal: flatbread, fresh milk, and roasted meat, prepared under the shade of ancient oaks. As they ate, one visitor delivered astonishing news. "I will return to you next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son." Genesis 18:10. Inside the tent, Sarah overheard and laughed, not with joy, but with the bitter disbelief of a woman who had long buried her dreams. At 90, with a body far past childbearing years, the idea seemed absurd. Yet, this moment marked the beginning of a miracle that would shift the course of Abraham's family and set the stage for the conflict to come. The arrival of Isaac, the child of God's covenant, would challenge Ishmael's place and deepen the divide between their descendants. The scene begins with an extraordinary visit to Abraham's tent in the sun-scorched plains of Hebron, roughly 20 miles south of modern-day Jerusalem. 3 mysterious strangers arrived, and Abraham, now 99 years old, welcomed them with the hospitality of a Bedouin patriarch, offering water, bread, and a freshly prepared meal under the shade of ancient oaks. As they spoke, one visitor delivered astonishing news. "I will return to you next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son." Genesis 18:10. Inside the tent, Sarah, now 90 and long past childbearing years, overheard this promise. Her response was a laugh, not one of joy, but of bitter disbelief. Decades of barrenness had crushed her hope, and the idea of motherhood at her age seemed impossible, even absurd. Her laughter was a raw expression of a heart that no longer dared to dream. Abraham's reaction, however, revealed the depth of his fatherly love. When God confirmed that this new son, Isaac, would carry the covenant, a sacred, unbreakable bond with God, Abraham's first thought was not celebration, but concern for his firstborn, Ishmael. "If only Ishmael might live under your blessing," he pleaded. Genesis 17:18. This was the cry of a heartbroken father, torn between God's promise and his love for the son who had been the center of his world for 13 years. Abraham feared the conflict that loomed, a division that would fracture his family. Yet God, in his mercy, reassured him. Isaac would inherit the covenant, but Ishmael would not be forgotten. "I will make him into a great nation," God promised, Genesis 17:20, affirming his care for both sons. True to his word, God performed a miracle. Sarah, at 90, gave birth to a son, and Abraham named him Isaac, meaning "he will laugh" in Hebrew, a name that forever captured the disbelief of his parents' laughter. For a time, joy filled the camp. Isaac, the child of divine promise, was a living testament to God's faithfulness. But beneath the celebration, tension simmered. The birth of Isaac shifted the dynamics of Abraham's household, threatening Ishmael's place as the firstborn and heir. This tension erupted during Isaac's weaning celebration, likely when he was about 2 or 3 years old, a significant milestone in ancient cultures. Sarah observed Ishmael, now a teenager, mocking his younger brother. The Hebrew word for mocking shares the same root as Isaac's name, suggesting more than playful teasing. Ishmael was challenging Isaac's status, as if declaring, "I am the firstborn, the true heir." For Sarah, this was an affront she could not tolerate. Her response was swift and severe. "Get rid of that slave woman and her son," she demanded of Abraham. "For that woman's son will never share in the inheritance with my son Isaac." Genesis 21:10. This was not just a mother's protectiveness. It was a claim to the covenant, a refusal to let Ishmael's presence threaten Isaac's divine calling. The Bible notes that Abraham was deeply troubled, his heart shattered by the thought of losing his firstborn. Ishmael was not just a son, but the embodiment of years of hope, raised in the desert tents of Canaan, now spanning roughly 200 square miles. Yet God spoke to Abraham in his anguish, instructing him to listen to Sarah while renewing the promise that Ishmael would become a great nation. With a heavy heart, Abraham obeyed. The next morning, he gave Hagar and Ishmael bread and a skin of water, perhaps enough for a few days in the harsh desert, and sent them into the wilderness of Beersheba, about 30 miles southwest of Hebron. This farewell was more than a physical separation. It marked a spiritual divide that would echo through history. For Abraham, it was an agonizing choice between his children, a father's love torn apart by divine purpose. The pain of this moment resonates in modern conflicts, particularly for many in Muslim countries and among Palestinians, who see parallels in the creation of Israel in 1948. Known as the Nakba, or catastrophe, this event displaced hundreds of thousands, mirroring Hagar and Ishmael's expulsion into the wilderness. For them, Isaac's birth and the elevation of his line felt like the erasure of Ishmael's identity, a loss of inheritance that fuels tensions today. Sarah's demand, "That woman's son will never share with my son," finds echoes in radical rhetoric, such as a hadith cited in some Islamic texts, including the Charter of Hamas, which envisions a final conflict where Muslims will fight against the Jews until even nature betrays them, except for the box thorn tree, associated with Jewish tradition. The narrative picks up in the arid wilderness of Beersheba, roughly 30 miles southwest of Hebron, where Hagar and her teenage son Ishmael faced a dire moment. Cast out from Abraham's camp with only a skin of water and some bread, they wandered in a desert spanning hundreds of square miles, where temperatures could soar above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. As their water ran dry, Hagar's hope faded, and she placed Ishmael under a shrub, unable to watch her son die of thirst. Yet, in this desperate hour, God intervened. An angel appeared, calling out, "Do not be afraid, for God has heard the voice of the boy." Genesis 21:17. The angel revealed a well of water, saving their lives, and reaffirmed God's promise. "I will make him into a great nation." Genesis 21:18. This divine rescue was more than a moment of survival.